There are some BLs that you watch once and forget. And then there are those BLs that, no matter how many new dramas you watch, somehow stay in the back of your mind. 2gether, the series is definitely one of those for me. So recently I decided to rewatch it, and honestly, I wasn't expecting to feel this nostalgic. Because when I first watched 2gether, I wasn't thinking about cinematography, character development, or whether the plot made perfect sense. I was just there for Sarawat and Tine. And rewatching it now, after watching so many BLs, was actually a very different experience. For anyone who somehow doesn't know the story, 2gether follows Tine, a university student who is being pursued by another guy and desperately wants to get him off his back. His friends come up with the classic solution, get a fake boyfriend. And that's where Sarawat comes in. Sarawat is basically the university's ultimate heartthrob, handsome, popular, talented, quiet, and apparently completely uninterested in romance. Tine asks him to pretend to be his boyfriend, thinking it's just going to be a temporary arrangement. Obviously, we all know where this is going. What starts as fake dating slowly turns into something much more complicated and much more real. And honestly, the first few episodes are still so fun to watch. Tine running around trying to find someone to play his fake boyfriend, Sarawat being completely unbothered, their ridiculous interactions. There is something so comforting about it. It's not trying to be dark or complicated. It's just a very easy drama to fall into. And then we have Sarawat. I completely understand why this character became such a phenomenon. Sarawat is the kind of character who barely has to do anything. He can literally just stand there looking at Tine and somehow the entire fandom loses its mind. And the funniest part is how different he is from Tine. Tine is loud, expressive, dramatic, and constantly panicking, while Sarawat is just Sarawat. He'll say one sentence and somehow make it more romantic than an entire love confession. And I think that contrast is what made Bright and Win's chemistry work so well for so many people. Their dynamic wasn't necessarily about huge romantic gestures all the time. It was about the little moments, the teasing, the awkwardness, the staring, the way Sarawat slowly becomes softer around Tine. And obviously, the guitar. I don't think I can talk about 2gether without mentioning music, because Scrubb practically became another character in this drama. Sarawat's love for Scrubb becomes one of the things that connects him and Tine, and those music scenes have become some of the most recognizable moments from the series. And watching them again now, I actually appreciated those scenes more than I expected. They're simple. There's no giant production behind them. It's just music, two people sitting together, and that little bit of tension between them. And somehow, that's enough. But here's where the nostalgia hits me. 2gether was a gateway BL for so many people. For a lot of fans, this wasn't just another drama. This was the drama that introduced them to Thai BL. And I completely understand why. It was easy to watch. The characters were instantly recognizable. The romance was light. The music was memorable and, of course, Sarawat and Tine became impossible to escape from once the fandom got hold of them. And we also can't forget the timing. This drama came out in 2020, when so many people were stuck at home looking for something to watch. Suddenly, this university romance exploded online. Edits were everywhere. Clips were everywhere. People were discovering BrightWin. People were discovering Thai BL. And for many of us, 2gether became attached to that particular period of our lives. That's why rewatching it now feels strange. Because I'm not just watching Tine and Sarawat. I'm also remembering the version of myself who watched them for the first time. And that's something newer BLs can't really recreate. Now, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that 2gether is perfect. It isn't. Watching it with 2026 BL standards, there are definitely things that stand out. Some of the relationship development feels rushed. Some misunderstandings could have been solved in about 5 minutes if these people simply communicated, and there are moments where you're literally sitting in front of the screen thinking, please just talk to each other. And yes, compared with some of the BLs we've gotten recently, the romance can feel relatively tame. But personally, I don't think that's a reason to dismiss it. Because 2gether wasn't trying to be every BL that came after it. You can't watch a classic and constantly compare it with everything that came later. And that's something I realized during this rewatch. I wasn't watching it thinking, is this the best BL I've ever seen? I was watching it thinking, oh my god, I remember this. I remembered the songs. I remembered the jokes. I remembered Tine's expressions. I remembered Sarawat acting like he didn't care while very obviously caring. I remembered all those tiny scenes that probably wouldn't seem extraordinary to someone watching the show for the first time today, but somehow became iconic to the people who were there when it aired. And that's exactly what makes a classic. Not perfection. Memories. And if you're planning to rewatch 2gether, I honestly recommend continuing with Still 2gether afterward. Because while the original series is very much about falling for someone and figuring out what that relationship even means, Still 2gether gives us a little more of the feeling of actually being a couple. Together, they make the experience feel more complete. So, after finishing my rewatch, would I say 2gether is still the greatest BL ever made? Probably not. Would I recommend it to someone who's never watched BL? Absolutely. Because sometimes you don't need a complicated plot or 20 layers of emotional trauma. Sometimes you just need two pretty boys, a guitar, a ridiculous fake dating situation, a bunch of university chaos, and one character saying something completely normal while the entire fandom screams. And maybe that's why I still have a soft spot for 2gether, because 2gether isn't just a BL I watched. It's one of those dramas that reminds me of when discovering BL felt completely new. And after watching countless dramas, countless couples, and countless stories since then, Sarawat and Tine still feel like coming home. So now I want to know from you guys, what was your first BL? And if it was 2gether, tell me honestly, do you still love it, or has your BL taste completely changed since then? Because I have a feeling the comments on this one are going to be very nostalgic.